Yeah, so Ernest, you see Don Jr. in there, right? He's landing in
Yeah.
Greenland. So you see that we got picture in picture now
Yes.
with us because this is kind of tricky. Some areas that I never foresaw,
Mm.
okay, all my years on Earth, is that the United States is trying to expand at this time instead of releasing countries or territories like Puerto Rico and what is it, the
The
Virgin Islands
Virgin
and all that kind of
Islands,
stuff.
Guam.
Yeah, they're looking to take Canada, add Canada as a 51st state. And they're looking to, throughout the agreement for the Panama Canal, okay, they want to take outright ownership, and saying to the fact that that Panama Canal was built for the military, okay? And the third thing is Greenland. I was really surprised about that. They want to just take Greenland from the Danish. So it's just amazing what I see going on. And he hasn't gone through inauguration yet. And he's
Right.
making he's moving right now. So people, don't look. We're just going to try to just show it to you, explain it from our perspective. And I think that, between Ernest and his congressional background and his combat background, and me with my 30 years of finance and working on 7 continents, not 7, 5. I worked on every continent except Australia and Antarctica. So I think I bring a certain amount of gravitas to international affairs because, don't forget, I'm an international banker. That was my job, international banking. So anyway, Ernest, what you got to say about what he was saying?
I mean, one, Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to
Happy New
our
Year. Happy New Year.
our audience. Glad to be back. And I guess the happiest part of the new year was that it was a new year, because this is definitely starting off very rocky as it pertains to this incoming administration. The notion of trying to acquire Greenland for the purposes of national security, I definitely would love for him to share who said that, and what the urgency is now today. But I think to the, I can't remember the young lady's name that was the representative of Denmark, what they were saying, but America should not be dictating to anyone of what they're going to do with their sovereign nation as it pertains to our national security. And that's the reason why we have embassies, the reason why we have NATO, the reason why we have allies that we work with in order to be able to secure areas of mutual interest. So for the president-elect to outright say that we have an immediate need and that Denmark or any other country should look to relinquish the sovereignty of their nation, I think is a little bit misplaced, and definitely putting the horse before the cart, or the cart before the
So
horse.
what do we have on the table, though?
To do what? To
Lay it
give?
out. What do we have?
As far as I know, we don't have any. Um, um, as it relates specifically to Greenland, nothing is as far as what we're going to do. Again, the reason why we have partnerships and and treaties and things of that nature is because we're entering into a mutual agreement about that particular land resources, if it's resources, land or access as it pertains to national security, and national security as it pertains to the interest of the country in which we are cohabitating in, or co-occupying, or in the territory in which we occupy. Those things are in agreement for a particular reason. Outside of that, I think that's all that we pretty much have as it pertains to like the Panama Canal. Again, that's in Central America. And
Yes, yes, but it was built with the assistance of the United States.
so has many other structures around this world have been built with the aid or support of the United States. Wars have been fought with the aid of the United States, either by monetary, munitions, and or ground troops. Structures have been rebuilt by with aid of the United States. It doesn't mean just because something was built with the aid of the United States, that the United States has sole claim over any of those particular structures.
Well, see, with me, I think that, looking at the situation, because we got four things on the table. We got the Panama Canal. We have Canada being the 51st state. That's there in North America. We also have the Gulf of Mexico, which they want to change to the Gulf of America. I'm not too adverse to that. Gulf of America, yeah, that's okay. I take that. We can call it Gulf of America. So, hey, okay, I let that one. But, okay, so we have Canada, 51st state. We have Panama Canal. They want to acquire that. All right, put it under total U.S. control. We have the Gulf of Mexico. We have Greenland.
Those are four.
And what did I miss? I missed
No,
one?
that's it. Those are four.
Yeah, those are the four. But the thing that I'm saying is I don't see a lot of flashpoints on this coming from our side or coming from the U.S. media. I don't see a lot of flashpoints. They're reporting it, but it's not like this is so far out there that it cannot be done.
I think that the likelihood of all parties that would have to be involved in order to make it happen is maybe part of the reason why it's not. I do believe that taking the incoming president for granted is a mistake that was made back in 2016. That I don't think that as Americans, regardless of what side you may be on, that we should take that for granted ever again. So to your point, yes, I think it should be discussed much more widely across all platforms to discuss the sincerity, the necessity of any of these acquisitions.
And the justification.
And the justification for any of these acquisitions. Because even for Canada to be noted as the 51st state, I think one is a slap in the face to the District of Columbia, who for decades now has been petitioning and lobbying for the District of Columbia to become the 51st state. The only in that has a mayor, that does not have a governor, that does not have a voting member of Congress for the House and for the Senate. I think that is, again, a slap in the face to the District of Columbia to not becoming the 51st state. In addition to that, Canada, again, has always been a part of North America, which kind of leads me into the whole situation about the Gulf of America. Well, the entire Western Hemisphere is the Americas. North America, Central America, South America. So renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America does not actually give it the America in which is being referenced. For
I see where you're going.
Right. For layman's, in all actuality, yeah, we have an assumption for those of us who were born in the United States, but it's not the Gulf of the United States. It's the Gulf of America. So America becomes North America, Central America, and South America. So I don't think he thought it all.
All right, so you're saying it's okay for them to rename it to the Gulf of the Americas?
I mean, for one, and that's the only way I think that the buy-in would happen is because you would have Central America, South America, who would all buy in for the changing of the name to make it the Gulf of America. But if that was the case, then would other nations be able to go off in agreement to make changes to, let's say, the Black Sea, and they want to change it to the Green Sea, and then other nations that have can we rename oceans? Can we rename the Caribbean Sea and make it the Latinx Sea? Because maybe there's more Latin, communities are in the Caribbean. I mean, which they're not. But you see what I'm saying? Like, if we go on this rabbit hole of just randomly changing names for the convenience of whomever may be in office. And I think
maybe like a Pandora's box that we're opening, right?
Absolutely.
You go in there and you can't come out.
Right. And exactly. And which, again, this is a very slippery slope to not take this, I think, more seriously, as not as it may appear, that we're even having this as a discussion. But I think that there is, to your earlier point, by them not talking about it, that they don't understand that this is still plausible for this to
That's right.
occur. And so I don't take this for a joke at all.
No, and I don't think we're taking it as serious as, I think the media is driving the narrative right now because they're not doing it as a bulletin or, breaking news. They do that. But I don't think they had the lengthy drill down discussions that's like we would have about it, and what are the repercussions. But I do see, based on what he's put out there, that he wants to be Putin Jr. But in his case, he wants Putin to be his son-in-law. I think the age difference is there, not that much though, because Putin is in close to 70 himself. But that's a play right out of Putin's handbook. So this is a segue into Ukraine for me, for us, is that okay? We are funding Ukraine's fight against the Russians, right? The Russians are there because under the former USSR, which that we spoke about earlier, Ukraine was a part of the USSR, the former Soviet Union. So I can see more so the rationale from Putin than the rationale from Donald Trump. Because Putin wants to bring the Soviet Union back to its glory days, which was the USSR. So I'm thinking that, yeah, exactly. So Trump is looking at that playbook, I believe, and saying, yeah, we should be doing that too, because we got some hot points over here that, for in America's, in the United States' national security and economic well-being, we should acquire, bring Canada in, bring Greenland in, do this and do that. The same thing that Putin is doing. So that's a playbook that's a play right out of Putin's handbook, right there.
Well, so the danger with that comparison is that the playbook was actually more or less written probably by Adolf Hitler versus Putin, where Hitler invaded all of its neighboring. Now, the motivation was slightly different, right? Because his was an annihilation of an entire ethnic group, as well as the acquisition of those areas, hence entering into World War II, right? Where Putin, again, the invasion of Crimea, the invasion of Ukraine, all are war efforts that were given, and aggressional tactics that are aggressive incursions on those sovereign nations. And I would hope that we are not taking any of those, or that the president-elect is not going to take any of those particular measures, because one would be an annihilation of an entire ethnic group. Two would be an act of an incursion on a sovereign nation that otherwise would be able to lead to a war that I don't believe that we have the appetite or desire to being able to engage in, nor is there an articulated reason or necessity to even acquire those areas. And then lastly, we haven't exercised diplomacy to utilize a mutual benefit of those areas in which that we're trying to acquire, i.e. the Panama Canal. I don't think there's anything that's been articulated as a reason why we need sole control.
Well, they mentioned that the Chinese are busy down in Panama. That's right. It's like
the Chinese are busy. Yeah, but the Chinese are busy in countries within Africa. The Chinese are busy in the Chinese are, and each sovereign nation has an ability to being able to operate and do business as needed. So regardless of the fact that the Chinese or the people of China are conducting business, because as of right now, they have not done anything, haven't broken any maritime laws, haven't broken NATO laws, and the Geneva Convention hasn't been violated. So other than that, they have every right to be in any particular part of the world and conducting business any way that they so choose, so long as it doesn't violate any of those particular.
But see, one thing that I don't want us to forget about the Chinese is, I'm very familiar with them landing and expanding on the continent of Africa. I'm very familiar with that. All right, kind of upset about it because what they do let's say Ghana wants to build an airport. I want to upgrade the airport. They go to the Chinese and say, okay, we need to upgrade the airport. Chinese say, okay, that's going to cost $2 billion and we'll do it for you. But you got to pay it back. All right?
Okay.
9 times out of 10, they're not able to pay it back, so the Chinese take over the airport.
Okay.
That's the way they play the game. They're very cold. They invite you in and say, yeah, we'll pay for it.
Are
and
they?
Then they build it also. They don't hire the locals. They build it themselves. They bring the Chinese in to do that job.
Yeah, I get that part, but that's all capitalism. I mean, that's it. They went in, leveraged their money for a need, gave an opportunity for an individual to being able to pay it back. The individual was unable to pay it back.
Well, they know that up front. They know that. That's in their plan.
Okay, so what you're sitting there saying is that we should have some type of predatory laws or something that are for international use of particular loans that we, again, that can't necessarily govern how someone else does business. In addition to that, no other country was offering to offset and build that airport, runway, or whatever resource that particular country needed at that time. So you left a needing country to be susceptible to if you want to label just for instructional purposes, a predatory country to come in and offer money. Whose fault is that? We're going to sit there and say
I would say the IMF and the World Bank are they're the reasons for that.
I mean, then fair enough. But then we can't place blame on China for being able to come in and do what they did, because we shouldn't have, as a world, if this is a global issue that we are all concerned about, we should have not have allowed for that to be able to take place.
And especially when it's been, because once they're there, we can't do anything.
I mean, once they're, yeah, but these steps have been repeated, right? Because there's multiple countries, tribes, areas within Africa that has been overtaken in some cases or occupied by China. And those issues that we're discussing now, one, should have been discussed before. Two, if the $2 billion of worth of need was something that they couldn't pay for, then as a collective country, a collective world, we should have sit there and said, hey, all of our allies, we want to pool our resources together and want to make sure that we offset the cost of it.
Yeah, right.
Because here's the thing. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, right. Like, who would do that? But we put billions over into Ukraine to fight a war. Yeah. We've done millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to other countries to fight whatever particular conflicts that they have had. So the $2 billion that any particular African country or any other country that was in a vulnerable state, we could have offset, but we didn't. And then now we want to point the finger at China and sit there and say, well, they're the bad guys for coming in and taking advantage of that. No, we knew that was a possibility and we did nothing about it. I think that we're not in a position, especially not in a moral or ethical position, to sit there and say that China has done anything wrong by doing what they did, because we allowed it to happen.
Well, see, the thing is, we can also apply that same logic to Russia going into Ukraine. The same logic is there for that.
Fair enough.
Don't you think so? It's the same logic. And the thing is, with Trump, touting, oh, we're going to take over this, we're going to take over that. Who is he? And these are in our backyard. Okay, that's a key thing. It's in our economic zone, per se. All right? So who are we to tell Putin, which Crimea is part of his zone, all right? Right in front of him, they're bordering countries, for us to say that you can't invade Ukraine. Okay? They are definitely going to pull out of Ukraine. I can tell you that right now, because we can't sit there and say we want Canada, we want Greenland. How are you going to sit there and say that when Putin is in Ukraine, and then there's going to be Estonia, then it's going to be something else? So how are we going to reconcile that?
I think those are, again, two different situations based on the genesis of those countries. One, Crimea, Ukraine, again, we have already established we're a part of the USSR. Canada was never a part of the United States.
All right. So what are you saying with Ukraine now? They were part of the USSR, so ergo it's good.
No. I
Russia
didn't
to
say
be taking the
ergo was
action
good.
instead?
I'm saying that the actions or the catalyst for wanting to reacquire a nation or a country that used to be a part of that country is different than trying to acquire a country that was never a part of this country. Canada was never a part of the United States. So therefore, trying to acquire Canada doesn't make any sense. Greenland was never a part of the United States.
Never. No, never. It's
So the
between
thing is,
Europe and the Americas. Yes.
exactly. So trying to acquire Greenland, again, it's not akin to Russia trying to reacquire Crimea or reacquire Ukraine. It's not. They're not the same, because again, the genesis is different. Two, again, we're not talking about doing an incursion on it in those particular sovereign nations. At least that's not part of the conversation.
Continue to support Ukraine with what we're trying to do in our own backyard, because Russia's doing the same thing. That's in their backyard.
But again, it's not something that we're doing. It's something that he has said.
We are supporting. Basically, it's a proxy fight. Let's just cut out the nonsense, go right to the point. It's a proxy fight between us and Russia. That's all that is. The same thing they did in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's a proxy fight. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
but, and I do not see that under this administration that anybody is going to let that go.
I wouldn't put money on it.
Yeah, no one's gonna let it go without a fight. And let me say it that way. And I was wanting to be careful about saying that, because I don't want to. I don't even want to speak, war into the atmosphere. But I don't see that happening, because I don't see this as being a very trusted administration. I think that maybe a few years ago, more or less about 16 years ago, that had the idea been floated around, and there was some type of need that that probably could have been discussed, and we could have reached a mutual agreement to being able to occupy some of the land within Greenland. I think that as it pertains to, I don't ever think that Canada will forgo its sovereignty to become a part of the United States. I've actually seen some documentaries on the intricacies of how they actually border some of the houses and the roads that merge and touch with the United States. And they've gone through a great lengths to being able to maintain their healthcare system, which I don't believe, again, that they would go without a fight. A lot of Americans that live in the northern part of North America or that border Canada often go into Canada in order to receive health care.
Yeah, and they work over there, near the border.
And work over there, exactly, and live over there, and they cross back and forth. And so I don't foresee that being something that becomes beneficial to Canadians. And unless North America, the United States, is going to adopt the healthcare system of Canada, in which I don't see that happening either.
No, that's not going to happen, but I can see
Right.
us colonizing, basically adding them without much problems, because, if you look at the population of Canada, which I don't have that data right in front of me, but they're not, they're like laid back, even though they do contribute to any efforts that we have militarily. Canada's always there. You got the top five, right? The top five, you got the U.S., UK, Germany, there's a couple more. No. Australia, the UK, Canada, France. I don't even think France is in there, but there's five of them.
You talking about lethality or population? Because
No. I'm talking about the big five, which are all English-speaking countries.
No. Yeah. I get you.
You know the ones I'm talking about, right? UK,
Yeah.
Australia, US, Canada, and there's one more that I'm missing right now. But people, just check it out. It's a big five. that everything between them, they're like one, basically. Okay? They're closer than anybody. So all the intelligence, a lot of the intelligence is shared between these top five. Okay? So it would be hard pressed for Canada to resist, especially with the economic pressure, because they are one of the they're one of the largest trading partners we have. Canada.
Right. But again, why would they take away their sovereignty to being able to control
Well, see, that's the thing. I want to see.
They have a parliament. They have, the way that they govern, the way that they live. Again, their healthcare system, their criminal justice system, their workforce. Which again is not the most robust, but it works for them to then become a part of the United States. I can't foresee that being able to. I don't see how that actually works.
Why not? They did it with Alaska. Or did they purchase Alaska or what? What did they do with Alaska?
So
I know they came in 1948. That much.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. But you're also talking about a different time. Because I don't know who the purchase was for or the acquisition was from.
And the Panama Canal Treaty. 1979, the Carter administration signs the implementation legislation for the Torrijos-Carter treaties into law. 1999, Panama takes over full operation, administration, and maintenance of the canal. So, with that said, I see some light there. I see some cracks.
No, I don't.
You don't see any cracks?
Nope. And the reason being is because in 1850, you're talking about roughly 10 years prior to the Civil War, and through the 1850s through 1860, we had roughly 9-10 states secede from the United States, starting their own government, and we entered into war between 1860 and 1863, or 1864. And then in 1880, there was a failed attempt for that to happen. In 1901, you sit there and said that America got rights to being able to build its own canal. So its own canal, not the Panama Canal, but its own canal. Then in 1903, Panama gained its independence. Panama gaining its independence superseded anything else that happened prior to that. Nowhere along the timeline between 1903 and today does that independence get compromised. After 1903, there were some mutual efforts to being able to build the canal. Fast forwarding to 1979, President Carter gains everything over, or signs a treaty over to Panama, or right. with Panama.
Ownership, yeah.
And so in 99, Panama takes over everything. So at what point in time does the United States have any particular claim of ownership? Because the ownership has been set in place since 1903. Only thing that this would be akin to, if the United States were to try to take this over, will be eminent domain, the same way that they would have done to Black people who got their 40 acres and a mule.
Yeah, I understand.
Legislate to take it back over from somebody who's had it this entire time, who has done nothing wrong to violate any of the treaties, who has not done anything wrong to, again, didn't violate the Geneva Convention, didn't violate NATO.
I know that. I know all of that, Ernest. But the thing is that, the Chinese are there, and they're using it as the Chinese are there in Panama doing whatever they're doing. So Trump can leverage that, because everybody apparently is against the Chinese. They haven't done anything to me, but they're the second biggest economic power in the world, and they want to be number one in maybe 5 to 10 years. So I see
first off
imminent threat, a perceived imminent threat from the Trump administration, from the Chinese. I see it.
I can see someone who doesn't understand what threats are as far as the president-elect taking this as a particular threat to his personal business or his friends' businesses, or their abilities to being able to make money or to have control or whatever have you. There is no grounds for any particular violation to make any, again, incursion or taking over Panama's control over the Panama Canal, despite China's presence there. Because again, if that was the case, then for every place that we have in Japan, every place that we have in Korea, everything that we have in any African nation, then we're just going to take over the entire world, because we're going to sit there and say, because there's a threat potentially because of China becoming an economic powerhouse. As last I checked, and I'm sure that anybody can go outside their house right now and look in their driveway and look in their neighbors' driveways, and there are probably more foreign cars in any of these driveways than anywhere else. Your television, if it's Samsung, if your phone is an Android or Samsung or whatever the case may be, that means it's been made in Korea. Most things, if you have a China cabinet, it's named after. So the notion that we are now so afraid of people that we continuously do business with for however long that we've all been alive.
People love China, man. You got to move. You got so many different things the Chinese are doing, man.
Exactly. Like, so what? So this all of a sudden now they're the big bad wolf because we're consuming all of their product.
Yeah, that's the way it is.
And we have to. Right, but see that's not fair. That's not just. That is someone who wants to be a dictator, someone that wants to be a monarch, right? We want to take resources away from countries or wherever it can be, and that's not a principle of the United States, or at least not what the fabric of the United States is.
Yeah, but don't forget about the past. Things change.
Yeah, things do change. Things do change. But
paradigm shifts happen.
Right, but also there's nothing cyclical under the sun, and so sometimes things, especially if we're not putting things into context, can oftentimes repeat itself. Especially, again, when we're sitting there saying, okay, well, China is making a threat to this particular, or just saying that someone's a threat. Again, that's akin to sitting there saying, because we have a black person that's in this white neighborhood, that they're a threat, and we have to make sure that we do something. No, that's not fair. That's not just.
But that person has a.
It does happen. But when we talk about it or trying to put in actions of how we're going to be able to deal with it, I think we have to be mindful of how we frame it, right? So that way people can't be like, oh no, we definitely need to make sure that we get them. Nah, because none of that makes sense. None of that makes sense. Like, you have clothes that are made in Taiwan. You have clothes, clothes that are made in you have, just things that we do business with one another. We only have one world that we all live in. And I think coming into this, this new year, and as we move forward, and things are definitely going to be rocky with this administration and how things kind of play along. But if you think about it, we all only have 100 years on this earth, a span of 100 years that we are on this earth together, right? Some of us.
Well, Trump did indicate that he's going to use economic sanctions. He's going to try to do it economically.
Yeah. Economic sanctions are what it's and here's the other piece to this that, again, are also different than what Putin was able to do versus what is allowed here in the United States, is that all of the acquisition, any of war, has to be passed by Congress.
Well, there you go.
So or discredit.
I'm not laughing at you, but the Congress is will be controlled by the Republicans.
Well, to a particular point, because there's a very slim majority in the House of Representatives. And that being said, with the number of veterans who do serve on the House Veteran Affairs Committee, the number of, there's only a few, but a number of veterans that do serve on the Senate Veteran Affairs Committee, or any of the members of the House that serve on the Armed Forces Committees on either side, the House or the Senate side, rather, not Republican, Democrat, I don't believe are going to green like this. So
Well,
there's going
I
because
wouldn't be surprised. That's why I'm not surprised at anything.
well, I mean, so here's the thing. I mean, I think it'll be really, really hard pressed for them to being able to do something like that because one, we had an agreement. I think the CMA, the Canada, Mexico, and America agreement, was done under Trump. If I'm not
I didn't research that, so I can't say anything to that.
right, I got you. But I believe that that was done under the Trump administration. That there was an agreement, a an economic agreement, a goods agreement under the Trump administration. So one, you would have to go back against all of those. And again, and then again, Congress is the one who has to actually make all of these things happen. So despite the fact that we get some fodder for a fire, maybe not this particular fire, but we have some fodder to kind of burn and chip away at something. None of this can actually take place without Congress. The only thing that the president has most influence over is the Marine Corps. He can put the Marine Corps in or Marines in exercise.
I didn't know
That
that.
doesn't. Yes, because any other thing that's considered to be an act of war has to be sanctioned by Congress. So it has to go
Right,
through
that
the
I know.
House.
Yes.
Yeah. So it has to go through the House and the Senate. And so therefore the only force that the president has at his disposal, which he cannot enter into war. And so and then that becomes another fine line because if it is in fact a war that the president, regardless of whom it is abusing that particular authority, then that also becomes punishable. Now,
All right, so
whether
what
or
are you
not,
saying, Ernest? Let me just interrupt you right there, because I just want some
yeah,
clarity. I want the
yes,
audience to have, a clear picture of what we're talking about here. When you said about
yes,
the president has direct authority, or he could move Marines, that's the only branch of the military that he has direct. Or no,
yes,
I know he's over everything, but as far as
yes,
deployment, he can deploy the
yes,
Marines. It's like
yes,
Ronald Reagan did with Grenada back in the day. I
yes,
do remember that. They sent the
yes,
Marines down.
yes.
Okay,
And but they
before your time.
and it, yes, it was. But the thing is that in Grenada it wasn't a war.
No, there was no chance to be a war, but he
It
put the
was no
Marines
right.
down there. Yep,
Yes,
yep,
and
yep,
they're
yep.
right. And so for those exercises, things of that nature, we can be deployed in that particular fashion. And then after, and that which does give the doesn't matter, as we were preparing for war back in 2003. Well, in 2002, we were, the talks about going to Iraq and Afghanistan and everything else was taking place. I was actually on ship on our way to Kuwait. We left in January, and President Bush at the time didn't declare war until February. We were already in country in Kuwait at that time. No, take that back. We were still on ship. Take that back. We were still on ship. We had not gotten in the country because it took over 30 something days to get there. Definitely was not a fast trip. But the thing is that at that time we weren't at war until it was declared war. And that declaration had to be passed through the House and the Senate to then go to the president, for then the president to then be able to say that we have declared war.
Got you.
Yeah.
I got you. But I think we'll be hard pressed to.
Very few of us will probably be so fortunate to live 100 of those years. I've had an opportunity to spend the last 6 years of your years that you've had on this earth and vice versa of the 40 plus years that I've had on this earth, right? But that's all that we have. And it's a unique thing to be in the same spaces and same times and cross paths the way that we do, but we can't villainize one another when there's nothing to villainize for.
I
Like
understand you.
we create enemies. We create enemies out of our rhetoric.
I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying, what I do want to, and I want to close,
Mm-hmm.
is that there's a dual reality out there
Mm-hmm.
and we've been speaking about this, right? Is that, one person sees it this way and another person sees it totally the opposite. You see white, they see black, vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
The reality, and I can't come to grips with it sometimes. It's how they can see that. when I
Mm-hmm.
can't see it? How you
Mm-hmm.
can you go out and propagate nonsense like that? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so we're in a strange situation because what you mentioned is that's the way it should be. What you mentioned is ideal. We should be obeying this and following this regulation and or these laws, and things can't happen with an attempt to colonize other countries. That's what they want to do with Greenland. They want to colonize Greenland. You know what I mean? So with what I've seen since Trump's been on the scene, I cannot rule out anything as too far out there for that to happen. I
Right.
can't. That's why I was telling you in our year-end show that I am looking very much forward to this year because I want to see how they govern. And we're seeing some of it right now. Okay. And don't forget, one thing is, if they can go through with this, adding Canada, taking over Greenland, the Panama Canal, and this and that, when they get tired of playing on our side, who do you think they're going to turn to? I believe, and I'm not going to put this, I'm just saying this is my opinion, folks. They're going to look at us. That's coming. They're going to look at us. And we're going to have some more shows dedicated to this. And I think we're going to have another show on what Trump is doing now with these attempts to colonize and acquire similar to Trump. And we cannot be so hypocritical, and Trump is not going to. He already said it. I'm not in favor of the war. His buddy Putin is conducting that war. So Ukraine is done. They should stop sending the money over there right now. Okay, it's done. All right. So, do you have any closing words after that, Ernest?
I think that what you were saying. I think it's an opportunity to. I think hopefully we take an opportunity to understand one another. Because although, like you said, there's a reality. There's something that you see. There's something that I see, and then there's something that's there. And I think ultimately, we need to be more intentional about trying to figure out what's actually there, and maybe potentially come to an understanding of how someone saw it the way that they saw it, and then come to a resolution that way. So I just say think people be kind to one another, be very intentional about what you do. I definitely am looking forward to this coming year.
Yeah, me too. All right, I just want to end with people. As I said in the beginning of this show, is that we need your support. We need your support. And if you subscribe, if you like, if you comment, that's helping us because we want to reach a goal in terms of the subscribers and the number of views and this and that. I mean, that's an integral part of operating, a podcast like ours. So we want to focus on that, but I'd like to thank y'all guys that we are 100% better than we were last year. I mean, we're everywhere now. We established, I think our brand is out there. People know who we are. And, I just want to thank y'all guys for your support, your ongoing support, and we're going to have some good stuff coming in the future. But don't forget, the Walt Weekly Podcast. Search on that. And let me just mention to you a couple things. Besides YouTube, we're on X now, which I didn't want to do. I really didn't want to do X. I didn't. Okay? But we got audience on X. We're on TikTok now. And don't forget our Facebook and Instagram pages at The Walt Weekly. So, guys, please, I'm asking you so that we can stay on the air, we can continue to do and add value in terms of knowledge and information to our people. And that's the African American people. Thank you very much. And next time, Ernest, talk to you later, buddy. Right now. Right. Bye.